waging war on corruption. I'm your host, Alex Jones. I will be here this Sunday live, 4 to 6 p.m. Central Time, as well as we go into election 2014, one of the most political elections we've ever seen, one of the dirtiest elections we've ever seen, incredible race baiting going on, and one of the most critically important we've ever seen, because even if a lot of these Republicans that are about to be voted in are globalist, the amount of anger and the major political realignment that this signifies, with early voting numbers coming out showing Republicans have a 10% lead, that's a big deal. We're going to be breaking that down coming up here in just a few minutes. First off, though, I don't want her within 3 feet of anyone. Governor threatens to arrest Ebola nurse after she defied quarantine to go for a bike ride and order pizza. So they're arresting people that defy quarantine in Africa. They're not bringing people into other African countries that have treated Ebola patients or who have it until they pass quarantine. But here we can't do that. And this nurse, who it turns out worked for the CDC, is so arrogant and going on the news via Skype all over the place, saying she'll do whatever she wants. What happens when other people come in contact with Ebola patients and perhaps have it, and then they decide to just run around? Why did this other nurse in Dallas treating Ebola patients get sick and call the CDC, and they said, go ahead and fly? And then she had Ebola, and Lord knows what she did on that airplane. The stuff spreads through the air. The CDC admits that. National news pointed it out, so they pulled that off their website today. Maine governor vows to use full extent of authority on Ebola nurse. Maine Governor LePage vowed last night to use the full extent of his authority in response to a nurse who has treated Ebola patients in Sierra Leone after she left her home in Maine and took a bicycle ride despite a quarantine order. LePage said his office had been in talks overnight Wednesday to work out a legal deal for the nurse who has tested negative for Ebola. Will spend the remaining time until November 10th, the period that the state has ordered her to remain at her home as she waits out the virus, minimum 21-day incubation period. Here's another headline out of France 24. Flu or Ebola? U.S. hospitals prepare for a confusing season. Yes, this is what's going to add to the panic. And then we have the confirmed reports from doctors and Border Patrol that people are being disappeared that appear to have Ebola. We don't know if they have Ebola. What we know is they are being disappeared. The hospitals that we fingered will not respond, will not deny. What's that tell you? And we talked to the doctor that blew the whistle up in Missouri. He talks to the doctors at the and the nurses there at the Harry Truman Center, and they go, no, it's all true. You're absolutely right, but we're scared. And then at the hospitals that he runs, he's been totally ostracized. Doctors, nurses won't even talk to him. All because he did his Hippocratic oath and said, hey, they're disappearing people in the middle of the night. And then we confirmed it from a major Dallas doctor. You add to that our exclusive story that a major shipping company is delivering with 18-wheelers as we speak from their cache on the East Coast $250,000 $1,000+ hazmat suits to the DFW area, Dallas-Fort Worth area. $250,000. And they admit they've ordered over 1 million total. And then Obama comes out yesterday, and we played the clip twice, and says there may be more Ebola cases. Just get ready for that. So they're waiting till after the election to announce more Ebola cases. I think it's overwhelmingly clear. Or they may be able to cover it up with the people they've been snatching. But regardless of this being real Ebola or panicking by the government, it should be a news item that people are disappearing. That's the kind of thing you get a Pulitzer Prize for. Where's the New York Times? Where's the Washington Post? Well, the fire departments, the police departments around the country were told 2 months ago, do not use the word Ebola over the radio. Hospitals were told, don't tell anybody if there's an Ebola case. So see, that's how the secrecy begins. And then, don't tell anybody if we bring an Ebola patient here. And then the CDC puts out on their website, oh, yes, it is airborne up to 3 feet. They take that down. So what you have is a cover-up. We know a cover-up's going on. We know some of what they're covering up, but we're about an inch deep in what I think is a very, very deep reservoir that we have to swim down to the bottom of to find out what's happening. And I never claimed that we were the total cutting edge of so-called journalism. What I do is just go off research, analysis, and what's already known. What is publicly available, public intelligence. Meanwhile, Breitbart's reporting Spanish intelligence has intercepted a plot to weaponize Ebola. Well, no kidding. I mean, what do you think ISIS and others are going to do? They're going to try to go into hospitals where people have Ebola, or they're going to try to go to these African countries, get sick, start incubating, and get on airplanes. But they don't need to because we have the doctor in New York. The police have said he's a liar and that he did get on the subway in the most busy time of day, and he went to restaurants and bowling alleys and taxi cabs. Gee, oh, by the way, when he was sick, you're a medical doctor. You come back from Doctors Without Borders, a known CIA front, though they do some real work. Some of the doctors in there aren't agents. And he returns back and then just starts racing around everywhere he can when he has a fever. And now they say he's moved into stage 2. That's the bleeding and the rest of it. Ebola doctor lied about New York City travels, New York Post. That's according to the NYPD. So we're seeing a real pattern here of these nurses and doctors just running around doing whatever they want. Is there one nurse that isn't running around? Is there one doctor that isn't running around? Will we catch one of these doctors next to the playground spitting on the monkey bars where kids are swinging? It seems like they're going over the top to spread this. Or maybe they just don't care. Maybe they're just stupid. Maybe they're just dumb. Or maybe they're not really sick. Maybe this is a psyop. I mean, there's real Ebola in Africa. Clearly, it's a real disease. Clearly, there's mystery illnesses with hundreds of kids dying every month now, tens of hundreds on respirators, just all sorts of bizarre deaths all over the place. And the media is so controlled, like the three monkeys, see nothing, hear nothing, say nothing, that pretty much anything could go on. That's when I got concerned in January of this year, when in the 2-month period, I'd lost 3 family members. And the doctors and nurses at the big medical center there in Tyler, Texas, were telling me, no, it's some kind of mystery illness. It's a combination of resistant viruses and just regular bacteria that just can't be killed and all sorts of other weird stuff, and it's a cocktail, and there are just people dying all over the place, and we can't take more people, and all the other hospitals can't take more people. And you'd find little local news articles here and there around the country. Mystery illness causes 4 deaths at the hospital this week. Next week, mystery illness claims 10 more. Introvirus D68 or flu. How do you know what your child has? Flu questions of the week. Well, when you go into most doctor's offices now, this has happened to me repeatedly with pediatricians. I've gone to different places, and because the guy I had was really good, but he retired. And I'll say, yeah, my child has 101 fever and everything. And they'll just kind of look down their throat and everything. Okay, here's some antibiotics. Here's a prescription. And I go, wait a minute. When I go to the clinic that I go to, because the guy's friends with my dad, well, it's a big clinic, but the owners are friends with my dad, so I know it's a good place. My dad said it was a great place, and it has been. I've been going there for like 15 years. They don't give me antibiotics. They make me cough in a cup, or they swab my leg when I had an infection, and then I had to wait a day in excruciating pain, and they called back and said, this is what it is. You've got 2 drug-resistant bacteria, 1 strep and 1 staph, and we're going to put you on 2 different hardcore antibiotics. Don't drink when you're on these. These will hurt your liver. But this stuff's so hard to knock out. Are you ready? You don't give people antibiotics, ladies and gentlemen, without testing and finding out. It's pointless when you got a virus. And people said, oh, it's racism that the first Ebola patient who knew he had Ebola and ran over here and gave it to people in Dallas. Remember Jesse Jackson? No responsibility. It's just racism. You rob a bank, it's racism. You mug somebody, it's racism. Everything is somebody else's fault. Well, he went into the hospital, and they didn't even test him. They just said, oh, here's some antibiotics. And he had Ebola. But that wasn't, like Jesse Jackson said, because they were racist. It's because they're inept, and they don't care at most of these facilities. That's what's going on. And, you know, Jesse Jackson's right in a way. This Ebola patient, you know, patient 0, you notice he's the only one that's died of all these white doctors they're bringing in here. Thomas Eric Duncan. That was his name. He's the only person that's died here of Ebola. 70% of people that get it die in Africa, sometimes 90%. But the only person that's died is a black guy. If I was the black folks out there, I would be really concerned about this Ebola. There have been a lot of white folks die from it. But if you look at the numbers, maybe 20%, which is still an incredible kill rate. But if you're black, in fact, we have a lot of new listeners, and people probably don't believe it. Will you cue up that documentary, and we'll show the article from the mid-'90s when they declassified that they've developed airborne weaponized Ebola and other race-specific bioweapons. And they have the doctors that did it, the heads of Project Coast, on there doing the interview. This is completely declassified. But I'm sick of hundreds of publications. CBS News, MSNBC, Salon, Raw Story, all of them. That's right, 60 Minutes even did a piece on it. Dr. Death and his accomplice. But let's go ahead and play this clip dealing with weaponized viruses and bacteria for black people. So let's just get this out in the open. This is going on. Here it is.
He used to rock up in South Africa, having flown intercontinental flights with a trousers pocket full of goodies in sealed vials that he claimed were new and wonderful organisms and could do the most wonderful things on Earth.
Larry Ford had also come up with germs that he called kaffir-killing germs. Kaffir, as you may know, in Afrikaans, is the equivalent of the N-word.
Is there a way to have contraceptives?
Oh, yeah, let's play that part.
Somehow basically sterilize blacks without them knowing it.
That's right, and you can go read those court documents. It's been in BBC, it's been in Der Spiegel, it's mainly been in European papers and South African, but I remember watching hearings on it in Congress back in the mid-'90s on C-SPAN. But it was Israel, the U.S., China was looking at it. Israel wanted to use it on the Arabs. The problem was about a third of the folks living in Israel are Arab Jews, or what you'd call actual precursor original Jews, you know, from Abraham and Isaac and all the rest of it that goes back to the same people. And so they had to back off of that because it had killed a third of the Jews in Israel. But this is all the type of stuff that's going on. Wouldn't kill Ashkenazi Jews, but it would have killed the Sephardic Jews. People like my late friend Aaron Russo, it'd kill him deader than a hammer. So when you say anti-Semitic, you can actually say it means being anti-Arab or anti-Jew, because that's where those folks come from. Now, the European derivation, and if you get into all that research, they'd have been just fine. The problem is so many of them have intermarried with Sephardic Jews, or what you'd call the original 12 tribes, I guess, that it would wipe those folks out. See, that's the problem with a race-specific bioweapon, because, yeah, you can create Ebola that'll kill 70, 90% of the black people, but it'll kill 23% of white people. See, we're too similar. But don't worry, they've gotten so much more high-tech now that they're working on that problem. They're working on that problem. And they put fluoride in everybody's water. They feed GMO to the white kids as well. The globalists can just get away with wiping out Africa because the governments are so corrupt. It's been colonial forever. It never got its freedom. And they've already gotten away with so much that that's where they're testing everything. But I will assure all the liberal white yuppies that'll grab your shirt and say, you know what, there are too many black people. We need these abortuaries. I've had black and white liberals tell me that black people are bad, need to be gotten rid of. I've had black leaders on who've said, yeah, of course, we've all heard that. That's the big, dirty, weird secret of the Democratic Party. Going back to Margaret Sanger recruiting blacks who would hate other blacks and help keep them down, dumb them down, steal their money, not get them funding. I mean, Al Sharpton's in the news, the FBI informant today, and Rangel and others saying it's, slavery that if blacks vote Republican. No, the real slavery is that you think you own all the black people. And you won't tell them about race-specific bioweapons, Sharpton. I was talking to Billy Corrigan, Smashing Pumpkins fame this morning. He's got some new heavy songs coming out, and he's going to send them to us right before his album comes out. We're going to get to premiere some of them here. And on drums is Tommy Lee, so you know it's going to be good. Look for that coming up next week. And the reason that's important is there are so many people out there in Hollywood, rock stars, hip-hop, you name it, that are awake to what's going on, but so few, like Dave Mustaine or Billy Corrigan, have the courage to come out and speak out about it. The reason I mentioned that is I was just texting him during the break. There is so much election news to get to. I'll open the phones up. I promise I want to take your calls ahead of Dr. Joseph Mercola joining us. But when you heard me playing one of the top medical doctors in the government of South Africa, working with the U.S., China, Israel, and others to create race-specific bioweapons, you need to understand that this is very serious. And PNAC, back in 2000, the Project for American Century, chaired by Dick Cheney, put out a paper saying we should look at the development and use of these. That's all I'm trying to say is you can't trust the people on top of this medical system, not the average doctors or nurses. And the way to stop this type of tyranny is to not just shut up when they say shut up, is to not just be a coward when they're disappearing people out of the hospital. No, talk about it like the Border Patrol's done, reaching out to us, and doctors have reached out to us. And then we report it, and millions find out about it, but everybody else doesn't because no one else will cover it. Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, DrudgeReport.com carried our story. And they had Democratic Party-run websites attack us and say the whack job Alex Jones and terms like that with thinly sourced articles claims people are disappearing. Really thinly sourced, the head of a hospital by name, naming the hospital where it happened. And then we're saying we have another medical doctor on record and a whole bunch more that don't want to be on air. And then the government's telling everybody shut up and don't talk about Ebola, and they're ordering millions of hazmat suits, and they're letting people with it travel around, and the border's open, and they're letting people fly in with it. I mean, something's obviously going on here. Let me tell you something. You're black and you get this, you got a 70% chance of coming up with X's in your eyes. And I'm sorry that your leadership's run by the eugenics operation, but so's all the, quote, leadership. I'm just so sick of being called racist because I don't want to kill all the black people, or I don't want to forcibly inject all the girls in Guatemala and Mexico and Nicaragua and El Salvador with HPV that's known to reduce fertility and attack the ovaries on record. You're not going to hear Mecha and La Raza because they're all on the globalist payroll. Look at their corporate funding. We don't have any of that corporate funding. They got 300, 400 corporate funders for groups that are like the Ku Klux Klan. Openly say, for our race, everything, for your race, nothing. We got the Democrats running around, the party of the Klan, saying it's racist if you don't vote Democrat. I mean, just what a joke. I'm going to cover that in the next hour ahead of your calls. Briefly, I'm taking my DNA force. My kids are taking their DNA force. This is what I believe is boosting my natural defenses the most. Go read the medical facts, the NutriMedical facts at InfoWarsLife.com. The actual patented facts on this, on a product where we can actually make claims, but I'm not going to make them on air. You go read what is on record, what they're patented, what they're proven to do, InfoWarsLife.com. The CoQ10, the BioPQQ, of the organic, super concentrated, NutriMedical level grade of that, and the secret sauce that comes in a week or two. I can't tell you what it is yet, but I'm taking it. And then we've got the Silver Bullet, InfoWarsLife.com, colloidal silver. And we've got the Nascent Iodine X2 that I believe, from my research, is just as important as colloidal silver. And then we've got Super Mel Vitality, and I mix this up and I drink it. And it is absolutely amazing. InfoWarsLife.com. Thank you all for your support. We'll be back second hour. Well, we got a race-specific bioweapon. All the pantheon of experts we've had on agree. Rapidly spreading across Africa, can infect millions, could kill millions. They're clearly, even mainstream news admits they're lying about the numbers that are dying over there. They say it's 5,000. The computer models are by the end of the year, 1.4 million. New York Times reports that could have it. And they're going to let, as that exponential spread happens, people get visas and fly over here. And then if nurses treat them, and even get fevers, the CDC's going to tell them to fly. What do you think about that? And what do you think about Reid now tries begging the public to vote for him? Oh, you're going to call us terrorists if we don't vote for you? And 1 million Senate ads. They're buying 1 million ads, the Democrats are. New York Times, 70% of Republicans, or the New York Times reports it's a 70% chance Republicans will take the Senate. Washington Post says 90% chance. But here's the issue. They have branded with the illegals, who they pay for everything, give them free guitar lessons, in-state tuition, free health care, the red carpet with the banks, the corporations, Silicon Valley. I'm going to go over these articles in the next segment. Rolls out the red carpet in every way to incentivize coming here. Now, once you're here, you're a Hispanic citizen or black citizen or white citizen, you're not getting squat. You're going to get the book thrown at you. But the courts just will not prosecute illegals for crimes, felonies, drunk driving. They are GODs in the state's eyes, but only to incentivize. I mean, I drove by Home Depot, the corner of 35 and 290 today. So I was late getting into the office. It was like 10:50. That's why I wasn't on the first 30 minutes or first 20 minutes. And there had to be 100 illegals. I mean, I want to send out there in the morning, or I guess do it at like 10 o'clock, and just walk up with folks that can speak Spanish, send one of our reporters that speaks good Spanish out there, and just talk about where you're from. They'll say, I'm from Guatemala, I'm from Nicaragua, I'm from El Salvador. It's not even so much Mexico. And they just come, and then they go work, and then their wife goes and gets on welfare, and then that's how they then become financially viable, which is fine and dandy, except they're above the law. And then you talk to them, like the director of Utopia, the film that we're the exclusive distributor on until December, Joel Gilbert. And they go, yeah, no, I'm here to escape socialism, but I like Obama because he gives me stuff. So you left socialism, but you like to come here and get it. And they're like, yeah, until it collapses. So I got to hand it to the illegals. They at least know what's going on. I mean, they're not stupid. I come up here and I get free stuff. If I vote for you, okay. It's all about a takedown. And the funny thing is, the illegals will then go out and just own guns illegally. So I don't know where all this is going, but it's a mess. And the Democrats, to have power and control, are doing this. And the Republican leadership wants to do it with them because they're bought and paid for by the same interest. And once they have 51%, which they've almost got, this is a last gasp, as Mecha and La Raza have said, of white America. No, it's not. It's way past that. I identify with ideas and with morals and with what people stand for, not with what color they are. But the globalists can get people to identify racially and then attach it to the immoral policies of anti-family, anti-gun socialism. And so I take the high road and try to say, hey, don't sterilize your kids. Hey, let's promote free market. Hey, let's try to fix your countries. It's like, no. Because it's all about winning, even if it wrecks everything. It's all about, it doesn't matter if it wrecks everything and it's a giant slum. America becomes a giant ghetto slum, third world. It doesn't matter because at least the TV will say the Raza won. It's a disaster.
Introducing the first proprietary oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, OxyPowder, backed by real FDA-approved phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. People are suffering from all kinds of digestive issues these days. All the toxins from the air, the food, the water, ultimately ends up in the gut or affects the gut. My main focus was to come up with a remedy for this, something that's safe and effective that anyone can take on a regular basis to keep their intestinal lining clean. My recommendation is to clean your intestines at least 2 to 3 times a week to prevent the toxic buildup from going into your bloodstream. Take your health into your own hands and start cleansing your body today with Oxy Powder. Secure your Oxy Powder today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.